second uncle again, Tenali, your brother. I'm here to go into a little bit more detail about Aztec religion and belief system, culture. Try to correlate it to the present and even discuss future events that might happen. In the past, I've talked about where the word Chicano came from, and then I went on to talk about the downfall of the Aztec empire and some of the reasons for it. Also, the return. I think in my last video I was talking about the return of these saviors in each religion. Talked about the Maitreya, in Buddhism, and the Mahdi. I don't think I mentioned it, but I'll mention it now. In Islam, you have what's known as the Mahdi, and he will return. The Messiah, Mashiach. And so with that, talked about how CERN is currently, testing and making portholes in dimensions, and there's a number of things that are going on. And I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. I want to give you as much facts as I can, and I really want people to think for themselves and think about what lies ahead for you. I think everybody is different. Everybody's situation is different. Of course, we're being moved right now currently to have the same situation. Everybody, going on lockdown, and people are stocking up on food and on water and things, and there's a lot of pandemonium right now, and so we're all moving towards the same world order system. And so I just want to bring things into perspective. I don't want to tell you how to think. It's better if you figure it out. But I thought about the Aztecs and some of the reasons for their downfall, and there are several other reasons, in fact, that I did not mention, but I'll mention them now. For time period, I wasn't able to go into detail. The mention of 8, there's a mention, if you look it up, there's 8 omens that they had. I don't want to go into all 8 of them. I'll just go into one of them. The most prominent one, the one that you read about the most, is that Moctezuma, the first Moctezuma, had seen a comet. He saw a comet in the sky. When he saw this comet blazing through the sky, he took it as a bad omen. He took it as something evil. He understood it as that it would be the fall of his empire. It would be the fall of the empire. And we know that comet actually existed. And there's a lot of people who say, oh, this is all make-believe or anything like that, because around the same time, same year, they believe it was 1521, they have record in Germany in other places also, but I know that in Germany they have a wooden pamphlet that was carved. They carved like in this wooden pamphlet type deal, a comet, and it's dated the same year that the Aztecs would have seen it. So this comet was seen. It was seen in other places of the world, and people documented it. So it is proven. But he saw this comet blazing through the sky. Now, scientifically, we know that a comet is just a ball of ice releasing gases. It's kind of like a dirty snowball, and it just goes through the sky. But to people who were chartering, you have to remember that in those days, they were a lot better at mapping the stars than we are now. I believe that. We learned a lot from them. If you read the Bible, when the Bible says that these wise men came to Jesus, they said, we saw his star. Well, those wise men would have been astrologers, because they were able to map the stars. There's a song that says, "We Three Kings." I don't think they were kings. And there wasn't three of them. The Bible says that there was a caravan. So it was kind of a lot of people there. They brought three gifts, but it wasn't three kings. But they were able to map the stars. They were able to charter them. And so with the stars being fixed the way they are, they're able to map them as we revolve. Anything that's different kind of throws them off. You have to remember that these people were mapping out their life by the stars. There's the seasons and when to farm and, when to do things and marry and all these things. And it was all done by the stars. And so if a comet comes through, they don't know, is this a falling star or something? There's a change in my life. And this change in my life is completely changing things for me, and could change things for not only me, but for my family, for my generation, for Moctezuma. It was his empire. And so seeing this comet completely changed his view on life. And it ultimately led to the defeat of the Aztecs. And so I want to bring that up to date of now. The thing that the most motivating factor wasn't the comet itself. It wasn't even Montezuma as his ideal about a comet. The motivating factor that kind of hinged everything together was fear. Fear was the number one thing that he was dealing with. And fear, I've heard people say fear is like an acronym, false evidence appearing real. And so when he saw this comet, it was something that happened in his life that never happened before, and it changed his destiny. And that's what fear does. Fear comes in and it changes everything. Currently, I live here in Dallas, Texas, and they just put a thing out saying that if you're a non-essential worker, you got to stay home. And they will stop you. The police will pull you over and ask you where you're going and everything. So everything is on lockdown right now. So there's this fear of people intermingling or even talking or even leaving their house. A lot of people don't even want to leave their house. It used to be, hey, I got to go get something to eat. A lot of people are sitting up at the house hungry now. And they're like, hey, I don't want to leave. Because the fear that's being out there. And fear has to have a motivator, a perpetuator. It's got to be propelled by something. And so when you have a lot of news coming from different angles, you have people saying, in Wuhan, it started, the origin of this coronavirus started with these bats, and they've been living with it, but this strand that is similar to humans, has only been with the bats for about 20 years, and now we found a coronavirus that kind of likes inhabiting both humans and bats. And that's on one end. On the other end, you have somebody who says, well, it's a biological warfare thing. You have a theorist who will stand up and say, how come Iran has it heavy, but India doesn't have it? It's like it completely jumps over, what's going on? That's got to be a biological weapon, because the countries or the nations that the United States does not like have it heavy. Places like Italy were not prepared for it. You get all this news from everywhere. You have people who are saying, well, it's the new 5G. It's the new 5G and, the wavelengths, and that's why they shut all the schools down. The reason they shut all the schools down is because they are, right now as we speak, they are putting 5G in the schools. So you get all of this information, and you don't know which way to go. You don't know which way to think. Some people are saying, hey, we might just have to live with this coronavirus. We might just have to deal with this coronavirus. And every year it's going to knock so many thousands of people out. Yeah, it infects people. And you watch the news, and the news shows you all the people that have got it. And, they're up there and they're in their beds in ICU, and hopefully they're not actors, but they're up there and they're, coughing and, it makes me feel like, but the news interviews them, but has not interviewed like the people that they haven't interviewed, like Tom Hanks. They haven't interviewed like Idris Elba. They haven't really gotten into interviews and say, hey, how about the other people? You're only giving us one side. So the media, we know the media is always kind of, they're a little shady, because they're going to show you some stuff that's going to, catch your eye and make you fear and make you watch it. I remember when 9/11 happened, people were just glued to their TV. They weren't even going to work. They were just glued to their TV. When Jerry Springer first came out, people were quitting their jobs because they wanted to watch Jerry Springer. Why? Because it was eye-catching, ear-catching. And we know that TV, in order to hypnotize somebody, you have to have two things. You have to have the visual and audio. This is why, when you watch the movies or whatever, you see the guy, he's dangling like a stopwatch or a pocket watch, and he goes, do you hear the sound of my voice? Well, the person's watching the watch, that's the visual. And the audible is him talking. Well, there's no greater hypnotizing than TV, because TV has your visual and audio, and because of that, capturing your visual and your audio, we bring it right into our living rooms. TV programs, they tell you right there, program, it's a program. And so the media pushes this out and says, why? Because it makes money. It generates funds for the media, because as long as you stay on their channel, as long as you keep watching it, it's like, but what it's also doing to you is it's building up the fear factor in you. It's building up the fear factor in you, and you're not sure, what should I do? What should I believe? Where should I go? What am I supposed to? And this is where Montezuma was at. Montezuma was on his temple palace. He had it going on. Everything was good. It was all good just a week ago, like the song says. It was just all good. Last month, nobody was even thinking about this. We were all walking around on our palace. And then here comes this omen. Here comes this sign. Here comes this that's going to change everything. Now, you have people that call themselves prophets today. They're kind of like Johnny-come-lately prophets, because they're not giving us in detail things prior to, but they're giving us in detail things afterward. Think about it. You have these guys who stand up here and say, well, the Bible said, well, okay, but you should have been preaching that beforehand. And the Bible doesn't say anything about coronavirus. It does say disease and pestilence and things. My point is that you got these guys. It's easy to sit up here afterward. It's easy to sit up here and say what I would have done. It's easy to sit up here and be like, this is what you have to do. But nobody has said, hey, beforehand, this is the steps that we should take. Even these end of the world people who have, you stocked up on toilet paper before everybody else. Yeah, now you can bust open those old waters and eat those old ramen noodles that you had sitting in the garage forever. Yeah, you can do that now. But you don't know the steps that are being taken. You don't know anything about these vaccines that they're giving out, these kits. Are they going to make this mandatory? Is this somehow correlated with the microchips that people are talking about? I hear about this microchip being a number of the beast, and I just think, man, I'm not sure. My dad used to work for Texas Instrument, and he said that there were, how they chip dogs and cats, and they chip them, to track them and things. He said it kind of messed up the dog system. And so what they did was they removed this chip, and they had this liquid injection. It was like a serum that they injected into the dog. And when they injected into the dog, a barcode would appear on the dog's skin. That's crazy. Is it something like that? Or what are we looking towards? Now, the problem that Moctezuma had was that he focused on the comet. The more he focused on the comet, the greater his fear was. The greater his fear was. You got people living in the same household, husbands and wives, who've never had this much time together. Children with their family, they never had this much time together. And it's weighing down on you. You've never had this much time together. You run out of games. You run out of TV shows. You've burnt out all the seasons of whatever you guys were going to watch on Netflix or Hulu. All of that's happening. And now it's coming to fear entering and seeping into your home. And fear is coming between husbands and wives to the point where they're starting to argue. People are going to divorce out of this because there is fear that has reached all the way and crept into the home life of people. So, as I mentioned, that there were prophets and holy men who have spoken of the last days, and there are prophets and holy men that speak of the days now. I don't disregard anybody who has taken the necessary disciplines to separate themselves from this world's powers and researched and did lengthy amounts of hours in study and dedicated their life to something. I really don't care what their belief system is, as long as they have invested those time. That's to be respected. I have to respect that. And more I see that there is these people who are considered to be like ministers and preachers and prophets and imams and people that are in some kind of power of authority or religious authority. I don't negate that. I listen to everybody. I don't negate that. I have my own personal belief, but I hear what they're saying. And because of that, I think that what has to be focused on is the imperfection of this world. That we knew, like all these religions teach us, all these religions show us, that we know that this world is not meant to last forever. Now, if you've gotten comfortable, if you've gotten to the point where you think you're going to last forever, just the times that we're dealing with now, if this isn't proof that your world can change all in an instant, that you're not meant to be here forever, then you need to take a closer look at what's happening. The imperfection of the world is bringing forth a perfection. If you study the planet Earth, it spins at a rate of 1,037 1/3 miles per hour. The weight of the Earth is 6 sextillion tons, so it's pretty heavy. That's why we don't feel like we're moving over 1,000 miles an hour. But it's not a perfect sphere. The Earth is a little wobbly. But the spinning causes us to, on an axis of 23.6 degrees, and you can thank the Mayans and the Olmecs for that. They knew the degree of the axis. At 23.6 degrees, the Earth is revolving around the sun, and as it revolves around the sun, it brings a gravitational pull, pulling all things towards the center. And if it was not for that little wobble in the Earth, it wouldn't cause us to continue to spin. It's kind of like a frisbee. If you ever put a frisbee, you can hang a frisbee on your finger, but as you get that force going, you see how the frisbee ends up straightening it out. It's kind of like that. So the imbalance makes up for the balance. The imperfection makes up the perfection. And I was reading the Bible yesterday, and I thought, man, this is a very powerful book. Now, I've read the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, the Book of Five Rings, the Talmud. I've read, everything from the Quran, several different transliterations of the Quran, all kinds of translations of the Bible. I mean, I've read a lot of stuff where men have sat down, and I thought, man, for an imperfect man or imperfect woman to be able to bring about perfection. That's 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 kind of the God deal there. And what I mean is, if you look like in Genesis, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was, darkness was upon the earth and it was void. Well, that word darkness or void means chaos. There was chaos. But then God says, let there be light. So out of chaos came this light. Out of imperfection came perfection. You get what I'm saying? Jesus comes into an imperfect world with imperfect people, with imperfect men. He gets inside an imperfect tomb. As he's inside the tomb, according to the Jewish calendar, and I say that because there are some skeptics who would say, well, if he rose on the third day, how do you say that from Friday to Sunday is 3 days? It's only 2 days, or how they say it, but they haven't checked the Jewish calendar and what constitutes a day. So it was 3 days according to the Jewish calendar. He didn't work off the Gregorian calendar like us. He didn't work off the Mayan calendar like the Aztecs. He worked off of the Jewish calendar. That was a custom. That was a culture. And so out of that tomb, that tomb was laid in imperfection, and what rose was perfection. So I believe that what we're dealing with right now is we're dealing with a time of imperfection. We're dealing with a time where people are starting to lose it. We're dealing with a time when people are looking for answers. I told you in my last video about people looking for saviors and wanting saviors. People are going to church online. People are going to mosque online. People are doing all these things. People are talking about God more than ever before. And there's a lot of fear out here. So there's a lot of fear in that imperfection. There's a world of the plethora of imperfections put out here. But just like the pattern that shows that perfection comes out of imperfection, it's almost like there's an answer in every problem. In this time of imperfection, it is perfecting people. And I want to encourage you, if you're a husband or a wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, or you're a family, that you take this time to become perfected. Perfect your family. Take this time to perfect those things that you weren't. Maybe you wanted to lose weight. There's people doing free lessons online right now. They're giving free lessons, online. Maybe you got something to get. I put these videos together, for you. So instead of looking at the comet and saying, oh, it's a bad omen, the empire is going to fall because you let fear come in, don't look at what is happening today and say, oh, my world is going to fall, my family's going to separate, all these things are going to happen. Don't let fear come in. Just know that this time of imperfection can perfect you. Know that this time of imperfection can be used to where perfection. In the same way that out of chaos came light, we see that even the scriptures of the Bible, God took imperfect men to make a perfect word. The same way. So with that, I want to encourage you to keep going. I'm going to make another video soon. I know I went on a little tangent, but I just want to keep families encouraged out there and keep you brothers and sisters going. Whatever happens in this time, don't let fear deceive you. Don't let fear take control. Keep your head on straight. Keep your head on right. Don't let your empire fall. Thank you. It's your brother, the second uncle, Tanali.